This is the Youth Soccer Revolution Podcast, episode number 18, with Jon Townsend from farpostfooty.com. Welcome back to another edition of the Youth Soccer Revolution Podcast. My name is Ernesto Diaz. Guys, thank you so much for joining in. You have no idea how much this means to me for you guys to spend some of your quality time with me on the podcast and listening. I try to put out as much good content as I can for you to listen to and hopefully learn from it, and the kids are benefiting from it. So thank you so much for joining me. All the great feedback I received, I really do appreciate it. Just want to mention a few quick things before we get started. We have a lot of links on the show notes this week for Jon Townsend. He's involved with so many great things that it's going to take a lot of links to get on the podcast show notes, but it's not a problem. I want to thank Jon again for joining me and just discussing a great article that he wrote, which you'll be listening to next. But I want to mention three quick things. Drew Ducker's Futsal Coaching Clinic, Kalamazoo, Michigan. So on March 22nd, you can use promo code YSE and get $60 off the coaching clinic and $45 off the player camp. And again, these are really low prices for what you get out of Drew Ducker. Drew is a former U.S. men's futsal national team player, so he knows what he's talking about. It would be a really great opportunity if you got a chance to go out and meet him and learn from his experiences. If you're interested, you can go on youthsoccerrevolution.com and click on the tab of Futsal Coaching Clinic. It's also there for the player camp. And again, you get a discount using promo code YSE. Second, I want to thank my sponsor, myteamspot.com. MyTeamSpot is the ultimate team management tool for coaches, parents, and players. You can manage multiple teams in one place. For some of you that are involved with more than one team. So it's definitely something a coach should get. You can send team emails, text messages. You can get real-time scheduling. You can provide real-time updates for your team, create events, and much more. You can share photos. You can share videos. It's just an awesome tool that I've been using, and you got to get. And for my members only, you get 60 days free trial. I mean, what else can we ask for MyTeamSpot? Thank you so much, MyTeamSpot, for offering this to our listeners. All you got to do is go to youthsoccerrevolution.com/MyTeamSpot, and on there you'll sign up and you get a 60-day free trial membership. Wow, that's awesome. So there's no reason why you shouldn't try it out, guys. Make sure you use promo code YSE60 for a 60-day free trial. Also want to thank my new sponsor, Audible, youthsoccerrevolution.com/Audible, and receive one free audiobook when you follow the link on youthsoccerrevolution.com/Audible. Go ahead, guys, check it out. Get your free audiobook from Audible. And now let's get on with our show. Here is Jon Townsend from farpostfooty.com. I am joined today by Jon Townsend. Jon is a writer currently for theoriginalcoach.com. You've also had some articles on the Guardian Sport. I've given the listeners just a little bit about you, but why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Thanks. It's great to be on. I write for, like you said, theoriginalcoach.com. They're an offshoot of thesfootballtimes.net. It's a soccer-based website. It's actually based out of England, but they cover the global game. There's writers from all over the world that contribute to that. My experience in the game, I started playing when I was 4, really kind of young, and I always had a ball at my foot when I was a kid, and I really gravitated toward playing year-round because I grew up in San Jose, California. So I played with a lot of Latino leagues, a lot of Portuguese players, and I have an interesting mix of, when I was younger, I used to play probably more street soccer and park soccer than I did organized soccer until I got to maybe around 9-10 years old, and then I did both still, but I got into more team soccer, and then right before high school, I moved to Chicago, the Chicagoland area. We relocated, and I continued to play there, and I started to continue to try to find different avenues to play, and so I'd play a lot of pickup soccer with some of the same type of of groups, Hispanic and Latino players, the Polish players, and then I played structured high-level club soccer, and I got a lot of experience that way. And then my parents were fortunate enough to send me to Europe for a little bit, and I went to the Netherlands to play. Learned a lot there. I spent some time in Germany. This is over the summers, and then I'd come back before school and just continue progressing. And then I played through high school, and then I was able to play at Division I level. And through my time playing, I played with some current national team players and former national team players. And I kind of took the traditional American route where, I became a journeyman player, trying to, find games, find training opportunities. Never had any delusions of grandeur that I was going to be a professional player, but definitely played for the love of the game. I was able to get on some competitive men's teams after college and play in some U.S. Open Cup games and get knocked out in the first round by better teams. But we probably did it for the beer money and for the experience. And then even today, I still play. I still play competitively when I can. But my focus is writing and trying to learn all that I have as a player, as a coach, and use my ability to write to kind of reach larger audiences and give people information and knowledge about the game, and kind of get back to the basics that it's a pretty simple game. And I think a lot of times we get caught up in our lives and our video games and our jobs, and we forget that there's a lot of good stuff we can be writing about and maybe building a knowledge base of good soccer literature to learn from, because I didn't have it growing up, and I think the kids these days could really benefit from that. So that's my story. It's a typical American soccer story, but with some shortcuts and some adventures along the way. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, thanks for sharing with us, Jon. Now, you mentioned that you used to play with some of the Latino players. Did you say that was in Chicago?
Yeah, it was in Chicago and in San Jose. So in South San Jose, a lot of the players come from families that are either first generation, immigrant families and whatnot, and they're the ones who play the most soccer. And when I was in Chicago, you could always, if you play soccer, you could always find these pockets, these ethnic pockets to play in. And my mother, her family is from Spain. My knowledge of the game in terms of speaking Spanish and whatnot is very limited because she's speaking only English. So it was interesting because I used to can look the part, but I didn't know how to talk the talk, so to speak. So it was always I always wanted the gringo when we played, and that was fine. But after I had a lot of friends that were primarily playing in the ethnic leagues in both San Jose and Chicago, and that was a really fun time for me to learn how to play the game from that aspect instead of the American structured, coach with a clipboard and a whistle. Yeah.
And so when did you start playing structured, like you said, with the coach with the clipboard?
I think I started, obviously, my first introduction to the game, probably when I was like 4 or 5, I got on my mother coached me, but that was nothing structured really. It was just getting kids together to play with the park district. But I started really getting serious after playing probably around 9 or 10 years old is when I started to really flourish a bit, because I was getting a lot of soccer in when other kids were playing baseball and basketball. And, when instead of playing those sports, I would just, go home, do my homework, and find a soccer ball, go outside to my garage and, hit it against there. Or I lived in a neighborhood with a lot of Latino families. So there was always some street soccer going on in the cul-de-sac or at the local park. So I was always playing no matter what. So by the time I was 9 or 10, I was actually probably playing at a, U13 level, just because, the informal pickup street soccer kind of toughens you up and it makes you play really fast. And I was just getting more soccer friends than the other kids. So about 9 or 10 is when I would say I started playing that organized American coached soccer.
I like the way you put that. I know exactly what you mean. I'm sure you mean like in a club, and you started doing the travel thing, which so many kids and us parents are accustomed to nowadays. And so that leads us to one of the articles that you wrote, which is titled "The Game is Free." Do you remember writing that article? What your thoughts were about it?
So how that article came to fruition was I have always been at a crossroads because I'm a product of both the pickup game and then the organized academy, whatever they call it, travel game. My parents were able to really provide for me the means to play as long as I could, as long as they could afford it. But which wasn't much back when I played. I think it was nothing like the players play today or what they have to pay to play today. So I remember thinking about this article when I was talking to my father about, we were actually watching this movie, Escape to Victory. I think everybody's seen it who's enjoyed soccer with Pele and Sylvester Stallone and Michael Caine, and they're playing against the Nazis in World War II. It's one of my favorite soccer movies. Take from it what you will. It's one of the rare ones where Pele is playing. But I remember there's a scene where Pele's character, Luis Fernandez, he's juggling a ball, and Michael Caine his character asked him, where'd you learn how to do that? And without even missing a beat, Pele says, when I was a boy in the street with the oranges in Trinidad. And so I remember as a kid, I saw this movie and I went outside to our orange tree in California and I picked up an orange and my mom was like, what are you doing? And I tried to juggle it and I was horrible. But, the point is that it was a very simple line and it was just a movie. But, I remember talking to my father and he said, the game should be, this is the phrase he used, was less X's and O's, more let's see how this goes. And that phrase really stuck with me because as a product of both environments, as I write about it now, I see a lot of over-organization. And I decided to just say, you know what, this isn't going to be about tactics. This isn't going to be about, what sport's better. I go by a lot of fields, and there's always these signs up that say, no play except on game days, or no one allowed on the field, or keep off. And in my experience in Europe, and I've been to Central America, there's kids playing everywhere. When I was playing in California, there were kids playing everywhere, parking lots and parks and wherever there's available space. And then here in the United States, we have this abundance of land, and we don't let any kids play on it. It's more reserved for these structured practice sessions, and they maybe get used 3 times a week and once on the weekends, and maybe there's a big tournament twice a year. But other than that, it's really hurting our youth because instead they're playing video games and they're getting into trouble. And I think it's a cultural thing. And in my culture, we didn't have smartphones and we didn't have the internet yet. And we didn't have a lot of video games and we didn't have a lot of money. So it was find a soccer ball, a little anything you could play with. And it could have been a tennis ball, it could have been a Coke can, and we would play. And that was just the environment I grew up in. I didn't grow up poor, but I grew up, we didn't have a lot of money to go too far. So it was not like I had a plethora of opportunities outside of, playing a couple sports. And, I think a lot of kids these days, they look at free time and they immediately go into their rooms and shut the door and get on their phones or get on their computers. And I remember talking to my father because the conversation was very simple. It was, I look at all these empty parks and I really, I think there should be more kids out there. It was really, just a conversation that we had that, on those same parks, I look at the basketball courts and I see people playing all the time. And I look at some of the other fields and there's American football being played. So, it's not that our kids don't get out and play. It's our soccer kids don't get out and play because they've been conditioned that only time they play is with these academies or these travel teams, and they have to be assessed by a coach and they have to be, told that they're great. And, I disagree. I think, there's a lot of good experiences come from playing pickup soccer and, getting out there and being healthy too, and just running around and exercising. I think no environment in the world, no player has ever been good enough just by playing with their clubs. It's always something on your own. So that's kind of where I decided to write this article. And, I really feel that, not to get too far ahead, but there's some issues in the article that I bring up that I think are still not addressed, and we can talk about those later. But, just seeing these empty parks, and every day I go to work, and I'm and even in the summer when the kids are not in school, hoping to see that they have, something they can go do and someplace they can go play, and they're just empty, and they're, for what reason?
And you mentioned no kid has ever, been one of the greatest just by playing in an academy, and that's something that I try to explain to the parents that yes, you might have a good coach, a great coach, you might have an awesome personal trainer, but these kids need to get out there and play on their own, and kind of figure things out on their own, and then come back in and use those skills that they've used in a structured setting as well. But it's really difficult to explain it to parents today because they think, he has the best coach that I can afford, therefore there's no reason why he shouldn't play Division I.
Yeah, and we exist in a society that thinks that there's an actual dollars for opportunity exchange and transaction going on. So they think that the more money that they pay, the higher up the kids should be able to play. And the reality is this: the reality is that as soon as you frame it that way, and soccer, this world's game, the simple game, probably the most inexpensive game to play in the world, becomes elitist. Players are making decisions on what they play based on economics, not based on whether they love the game or not. And you're exactly right. And parents don't understand this because they believe that there is such thing as a full ride for every kid who is entitled to it. And in reality, as a former player, you might, in this country with Title IX, there's 9.9 scholarships at the Division I level for 23, 25 guys. The reality of you getting a full ride is on purely athletic scholarship is really rare. And not that it's impossible, but most players are on packages that balance academics, they balance, some soccer money, some loans. So when parents make these youth soccer decisions based off of I want my son to play or my daughter to play Division I, or I want them to go play professional, they're looking way far ahead and they're not taking care of the business, right in front of them. And, I've always argued that youth soccer, pay to play, is hurting the game. It's become a business. And, and I think that people look at youth soccer and they see dollar signs and they don't see opportunity to grow the game. They see an opportunity to make a living off of ignorance and off of people's wishes and hopes. And it's a very buyer beware society, in my opinion.
You talked about the value that is placed on pickup soccer, which is almost none. I mean, there's really very little value that's placed on it.
Yeah, you're right. And one of the things that I saw as I got into coaching a bit was all the leadership skills that I learned, even the tough attributes, learning how to play within a little team setting, learning how to compete without having a coach force me to do these things, learning how to take my lumps, learning how to improvise and play quicker and maybe learn tricks. I don't know, but a lot of these things are learned when there's no coach around. You can always measure a player's progress by what they do when there's no one looking. It's a cliche, but with soccer, if you fully believe that you are going to be a better player, you have to understand that it's about intensity and volume and frequency. And with our current club system, even the academies, they can practice every day if they want, but they're only practicing for, 2 hours at the most, maybe a game every other weekend or on the weekends. The reality is that if you have to do these things only when prompted, you are going to confine yourself as a player to that conditional, state of playing. The kids in Brazil, the kids in Europe, in Mexico, in the United States even, like me, we learned a lot of what we know and carry out through our life on and off the field by playing and learning how to form friendships, learning how to hold your nerve, learning how to be creative. I think that's the biggest thing right now. The creativity is being coached out of kids. We are teaching from the textbook. We are teaching from, this is what U.S. soccer says, so this is what we must do. And, a lot of times just throw a ball up there and let the kids do it on their own. I mean, free play is one of the greatest tools of soccer development, and it's free. But when you tell it to an American parent, they're like, what do you mean it's free? I'm going to pay for this, and that's going to get my son or daughter to the highest level. When really, it's just they need to play, and they need to play without you there as the parent. They need, these uncoached sessions because that's where the kids can be themselves. Everyone's on their guard. It's like being at work. Everyone is different at work than they are at home. And with kids, it's put them on the field with their friends. Let them figure that out. That part of the process, the pedagogy, is learning on your own without having someone tell you 24/7, do this, do this, do this. It's be creative. Learn how to handle some adversity. So I think those are the things that you're talking about that are undersold, underappreciated, is these leadership things, these innate things that have to bring out of kids. But with free play, it brings out of themselves.
Yeah. And, John, one of the things that I tell our listeners is if the reality is we live in a very large country, and we don't always live in an area where there's a park or where you can just go out and play with a bunch of kids. But one of the things I tell them, hey, go in your backyard, play a game with your son or daughter. You won't believe how helpful that is to them. They don't have to have a personal trainer or their coach present. You can just play with them. They might beat you, but they're having fun and they're having their little pickup game.
Yeah, there's a fun story I like to tell. There's my parents used to have a dog, a Siberian Husky, and they're sled dogs. And in California, my father drove several hours to Lake Tahoe to get the dog for us, and the dog was out of control. We couldn't have him off the leash. And I remember we lived in a part of town where if there was no neighborhood kid playing, there wasn't many opportunities to go play. I wasn't going to get on the city bus, and my parents weren't going to let me do that. So what I used to do is go in the backyard and grab a soccer ball or a tennis ball or one of the dog's toys, like a ball, and I used to just dribble against it. And the thing about that is funny is it was just one-on-one for hours and hours and hours, and the dog is tireless. He's going to go after the ball. It's probably a better defender than a lot of our professional players, but it's all instinct. And it was a fun way to improvise. And I think we always look at youth soccer as out-of-the-box stuff. But what I mean by that is people expect to look into a box and be able to pull something out. And I look at how they do it in Europe, jumpers for goalposts. Take your jacket off, take off, a shoe, put it on there, and, those are the goals. It was not uncommon for a lot of young players in my generation to play. We either have to, buy a Coke or, something for the other team. So I can tell you a million games that I used to play on my own that probably seemed insane, but they were just ways to pass the time and ways to have fun. And I never thought of it as I'm going to be the best player in the world. I thought of it as this is what I love to do, and that's what I'm going to go do. I think that's the mindset is I think we our young people look at it, they need a reward for every task. When maybe the game is the reward itself instead of this assessment that's formal. They need a checklist. Just enjoy the experience. I think life is too short to keep living for. I mean, they have the rest of their lives to be assessed at work and in their careers and in school and whatnot. But soccer, that's the reward. Is the actual playing, getting out there, breathing the air, and playing when the neighborhood lights come on. Next goal wins. That whole thing. That's the game. That's competitive. We can talk all we want about these little trophies and all that stuff, but that's the true essence, in my opinion.
Yeah, you mentioned a player who sees a soccer as a chore is a player who has most likely only played in a controlled environment. Because, it is supposed to be fun. That's the whole point of the kids showing up and you getting your kids involved is because you want them to be active and you want them to have fun. But sometimes these kids look at soccer practice as a chore, and it shouldn't be that way. Yeah,
and I think that goes for so many things in our society. I was talking to some parents not too long ago, and a lot of it was down to I used to coach their kids, and finally I went out there and watched them play, and I hadn't seen them for many years. And I heard a conversation in between three parents. My son has soccer practice, and then after this he's going to piano lessons, and after that he's got Boy Scouts tonight, and then then he's got 3 more activities. So they're overscheduled. So not only are these kids learning to play only when they're told, they're carted around and put in so many activities that it gets back to that old adage, jack of all trades, master of none. And I think what we're seeing, and I'm sure you've seen it too, is we can't expect our players to ever learn how to be tougher, how to be more creative, anything. It could be playing piano, it could be writing, it could be soccer, it could be doing anything that they love to do. If they're only doing it because someone else wants them to, I always call it holding the proverbial gun to someone's head. We aren't really hitting why we do these things for leisure. And the other thing is you mentioned love of the game. I think that is lost on a lot of players. Is one of the first experiences I had as a 9-year-old was the coach said you can't go over halfway if you're a defensive player. My whole life I've learned I can go wherever I want with the ball. And I think that practice was my first and last with that team because I realized that there's this obsession with control that a lot of adults have. They want to be the authoritarian. They want to be the person in control. They become the focal point of practice and instruction. when really it's about the kids, it's about the game. And as you get older, yes, that does come into play. But for our young players, we need them to be the focal point, and it becomes lost on the American sporting landscape.
All right, guys, don't forget to listen to part 2 of the Jon Townsend interview. Again, I want to thank my sponsors, myteamspot.com. Make sure you go on youthsoccerrevolution.com/myteamspot. Use promo code YSE60 and Audible. Get one free audiobook when you log on to youthsoccerrevolution.com/Audible. All right, guys, I'll catch you on the other side.